Hey there, this is Felice,
I'm Kim.
and you're listening to Work It, the only podcast where we get honest about your situation at work. See, we believe that work can affect our whole person, including our personal lives and even our health. Our goal is to leave you empowered, encouraged, and energized in your everyday work life. So pull up because this is where the real orientation and the fun begins. Hey, Kim.
Hey, this is what it's all about. It's so much fun to talk about this because you don't really get a place to talk about this. There really isn't a class, there isn't there are webinars, but the goal is to make it fun because this is real life. And you know what? Up, down, left, right, you got to make it work.
You have to make it work. And on that note, today, you know, just had this feeling and this mood about performance appraisals and performance evaluations. Every company just about does them. But I think that they could be causing more harm than good. And I'm not sure that people actually feel that the performance appraisal process is working for them. What are your thoughts on performance appraisals?
You know what? I think the problem is people see appraisals as something that's sort of done like seasonally, like we're going to do it because it's spring or we're going to do it because you're going on summer vacation. And the truth of it is, if you really want to appraise somebody's performance, you would tell them when they're doing something really good. You would tell them when they're doing something really bad in real time. You wouldn't wait and save it up like it's money in a savings bank. You would share it with people in real time. And then there wouldn't be this sort of gotcha. I saved all these things up on you. And look at this. I got the memo from 4 weeks ago and the emails from 10 weeks ago. They would be able to in real time say to you, you know what, you did such and such, and that's a best practice. You did such and such, and we just don't do that. Not here. Let's let you know what's wrong so you can fix it.
So, yes. So, right about now, what? We're in September. I imagine that some mid-year reviews are going to start coming up. So we want to help all of you understand the importance of the appraisal process, the performance evaluation process, because whether or not we think it matters or whether or not we think that it is important to the organization, they are happening. So, mid-year is coming up. What do you need to know? I would say that first, Kim, people need to understand that for the most part, a lot of organizations don't have a way to measure outcomes when it comes to people. And the way that they do this, right, the way they've designed to do this is through the performance evaluation process. But Gallup did some research and found that performance reviews are so bad that they do more harm than good. And that's because managers are often untrained. There are surprises. Now, this is me adding to the Gallup, right? And managers fear confrontation, so they do the very bare minimum. But Gallup said that listen, these performance appraisals are doing far more harm than good. Um, but yet companies are using them. What do we say to that?
Well, I mean, the company has to do something so that they can evaluate people. I mean, you can't just give people a raise or not give people a raise and say, I didn't think you were good. So what? You know, tough if you don't like what I just said. So there has to be a process. I totally get that. I just think that, like you said, people are untrained on both sides, right? The managers are untrained, that an evaluation is how are you doing over time? How are you doing compared to the other workers? How are you doing according to the matrix of what we need for our company? Not, oh, you did this thing 3 months ago and it was bad and I'm not really feeling you anyway. So now 8 months later, I'm going to put in your evaluation that you're not the best employee I ever had because you did this thing 8 months ago. I mean, that's not evaluation. That's ambush. We don't want
That is
ambush.
ambush. That is
Absolutely.
so rule number 1 is understanding the purpose of the performance eval for your organization. What is their purpose? Is this how people get their raises? Is this how people get promoted?
That's right.
Or is it just a measure of how you are meeting expectations with not attached to any specific outcome? But you need to understand that going in the door.
That's right. That's right. What is the measure of success? I feel like again, companies don't do as well with telling people what the measurement of success will be. So as an employee, if you're in that seat, you should be watching what success looks like. I don't care what they say the measure is, you also should add to it. What does it look like? What do people that everyone agrees represent success in this company? What do they do? What are their habits? I used to joke that if you worked at a law firm and you were only in the library all day or you were only doing research all day, by definition, you would never be a partner. By definition, not having anything to do with gender or color or what you studied or where you studied. If you are not doing the things that the people who are partners do, then by definition, you cannot be them. So that means you can't be sitting in the library all day. It means you have to be out. It means you have to be meet. How do you get a new client? Do you get a new client in the library or do you get a new client in the world? Or do you get a new client with a partner who's meeting with clients? So these are all this is observational. I guess the point that I'm trying to make, and I'm probably taking too long, is that you should be watching what success looks like so that you can emulate the parts that work for you. I'm not saying try to be someone else or imitate somebody else. I'm saying if you know that sitting in the library all day, every day is not going to get you where you want to go, then you need to do something different.
And let's be honest, some folks get away with stuff that other folks don't get away with. Let's just be
This is
honest, let's put that out there. I've had colleagues who could walk around talking back to the boss, doing all kind of stuff and still get promoted. That doesn't mean that Felice could walk in talking back to the boss and doing crazy stuff and expect to be promoted. No, because sometimes we understand that different measures are applied to different people. But Kim, you said something real key, and that's understanding what the expectations are, watching, but also ask. Ask someone who's been around, especially if you're new to the organization. Ask. I remember the first time when I started in my career as an attorney, I had a colleague, a coworker, not a supervisor, sit down with me and say, listen, they're going to be measuring these 5 categories: quality, quantity, communication, and a bunch of other stuff. They're going to be looking at these. And I don't care what they put in terms of your overall rating, they might say excellent. If you read that narrative and that narrative doesn't read excellent to you, then you have a problem. So I want you to focus on these 5, and then once you get your appraisal, I want you to look at all these different categories. That helped me tremendously. And in that first year, I got an outstanding rating. Why? Because I knew what the expectations were. I knew what the goalpost was.
Well, again, I mean, that's what she got. Don't expect that everywhere because it doesn't happen everywhere. And it's very rare. I mean, it is a rare gift. And especially to get it early in your career is such a gift because from now on, she'll always want to know where the goalposts are. But you may get a job where you don't have that. And I'm going to tell you, I can still hear my mother saying, you don't have a trust fund. Your daddy doesn't own the company. So you're nobody's daughter. You're nobody's wife. And I raised you not to be nothing else to anybody else but a colleague. And not you can imagine colorfully how she might have said that. But the reality is, if you're there as an employee and you're there for work, you always have to be doing your own quality control about your work. So if that means you get mentors inside and outside of your company, if that means that you go to people's offices and say, I'd like to work on this project with you, or I'd like to know what your expectations are so that I can try to meet them at the highest level. People will respect that. It's rare, by the way, that people even do that. So whether people give it to you or you have to go get it, it needs to be done because that's the only way you're going to make it through the appraisal process and get the things you want. And like she said, when the words don't match the grade, then you know what to say. You need to say to people, I don't believe these words match this grade. And here's the point right here. I think, it's like you gave it with the right hand, but you took it away with the left. Maybe we could make the words match the grade. I mean, you won't even be able to
Come
ask
on.
for that if you don't know what you're looking for. You can't ask for it if you don't know what it is.
Come on. And I'm going to add, talk to your boss. Ask your supervisor. You just walked in. Say, I'd like to know what the performance appraisal process is like and what are the categories in which I will be appraised, right? There's nothing, in fact, I think that makes you look like a superstar because you're trying to figure out where's the goalpost, where do I need to be hitting? And your supervisor is the person who's in the best position to be able to share that information
That's
with
right.
you.
And remember, it's the difference between I teach now, and I actually have had students say, basically, well, what do I need to do to get the A? Well, it's so funny as a professor, what you need to do is understand the material and be able to use it in a way that says you have mastered it. So now the question to ask me is, how do I master this material so that I can demonstrate that I've learned that which we are being taught here? Now that is the question if you want to impress me and make friends and whatever. But if you're just asking me how to get the A, I'm already turned off. And now you got to come back from that. And
Mm.
usually that person is not prepared to put in the work. And all year long, I just kept looking at the person going, and you didn't really closely look at that. Oops. And you didn't really ask those questions. Oops. And
Mm.
I just all the ways that they were basically trifling and lazy and just wanted the good
Mm.
grade. I mean, yeah, it's easy if you're good at it, but you have to work to be good at it. So you see,
And no supervisor is going to ever be able to tell you, here's how you get the top rating. But what they can say to you is, we look at these different criteria, and to be successful in this area, we look at X, Y, and Z. For example, one of my categories was quantity. Well, what is quantity? What do you mean by quantity? What are you closing? How
yeah,
many cases are you resolving? How long does a case sit on your desk?
that's
Timeliness was another one. What does
that's
timeliness look like? Work quality. I understand you're pushing out a lot of work, but if you have typos in all your work and it's sloppy work, yeah, you're turning out work, but it's not anything, the quality is poor. So ask those types of questions. Like, for example, how do I, what would great quality or quantity look like? And your supervisor can tell you that. Kim, what about being mindful of the conversations that you're having with your boss in the review period? Now, let's just say you talk to your boss, you understand some of the criteria, but how should we just be waiting for the mid-year and the final, or should we be communicating?
You're always communicating. I mean, if you're doing it right, you're always communicating. I mean, but you shouldn't be like needy. Like, was I good today? Was it good today? Was I just a little off today? I felt a little off today. You don't be thirsty because nobody likes that. Nobody in your real life and nobody in your work life. But I think that you should be engaged enough to say, you know what? Did I catch everything here? Is there something else we might look at? You want to show that you're engaged in creating a product that's reflective of the highest standards of wherever you are. And that's really what it always will come down to. But you don't want to be, thirsty or crazy. You meet a lot of people in the workplace and they're just on the edge. Well, was it good? Oh my God, I don't think it's going to be good. Oh my gosh, what do they think? And if you're worried about what people think 24 hours, you can't even take the actions necessary to make good decisions if you're afraid. You have to have some decisiveness in what you do, but you can only have that if you know where those goalposts are. She
And
Lisa,
the boss doesn't
absolutely.
have time.
Yeah, well, he don't have time for all of that, and neither does she. Especially she. She don't have no time for
Doesn't have time. You've
that.
been a boss. I've been a boss. Nobody has time
Nobody
to
has time.
babysit all
Mm,
day, right? We expect
mm,
for you to know how to do the job
yeah.
and do it well.
Yeah.
And if you have questions or you want to get clarification, then you come and you ask, but you shouldn't need clarification on every single last thing now.
Then I'm wondering why I hired you. And I'm gonna tell you something. Watch the example of the I was working so many hours and so much and flying here and flying there. I don't want you asking me something silly because I don't have time for that. But if you need some genuine help, you need some direction, you need a strategy and a plan. Oh, of course, I got time for that because I could send you off and now I know the thing is going to be done. But if you're just coming to ask me some basic, well, what day should we work on this, or when is it, when is it that you think we'll have to show this to other people, then you're
Oh,
already in the wrong place, and you're going to get wrong results because you are not thinking big picture. And there's a lot of people like that. I'm sorry to say, a lot of
oh,
people like that.
oh. Can I say, listen, come with options, not
That's
not
right.
a do we have to wait till the fifth day? Come with, I was thinking we could wait until the fifth, 10th, or 15th day, and here are the different reasons. Do you have a preference? Because here's what
Right.
I recommend. Have your recommendation. I recommend that we go with the 10th day, and here's why. What do you think? But don't just go. Listen, your boss has hired you to be an expert in some space. I don't care if it's cleaning the drains or doing plumbing work. They hired you to be an expert in something. They're looking for you because, see, they have to manage an operation. They're looking for you to bring your ideas and your recommendations, right? Not for you to just come with just needing this, like Kim talked about.
Right. Let me tell you something. If you have left it up to work to do all the work for you, bad things are going to happen. But if you are a person who is proactive, who has a plan, then if work doesn't work out for you, you already have other options. But you have to be engaged enough about where you're going and what you're doing. If you're leaving it to the other people, if your boss has to map out your strategy for success, then your boss is not going to be grading you as the most successful because they've done all the work. If anything, they're going to say, I deserve more money because I have her on my team. And that's not what you want. If you're there, you're already in a bad place. So you don't need to ask anybody that question. I used to tell you something else. If you have to have a question asked for everything that you do, if the only question I like people to ask me is there something else they can do? Is there something more they can do? Can they do it better? But this whole thing of what do I do next? That's too basic. That's your job when you're in high school.
Too basic. Too basic. If you're constantly having to go back and say, what about, what about, what about, what about, you've gone back too many times. Like, if you need clarification, make sure that you are taking notes, ladies and gentlemen. Have your notebook out, because your boss's time, or whoever you're talking to, if it's a colleague, a boss, whoever, they have limited time. Have your notebook out so that you don't have to keep coming with the same question over and over again. If it's 2 weeks down the line, 2 months down the line, you can go back to your notebook and review your notes to answer your question. Do a Google search, do some research before you come with all the questions, because when you keep going back asking for the smallest little detail, it makes it seem like maybe you're not really ready for this role.
Maybe not, just maybe not. Or I tell you what, I say, so let's say the boss is busy and not just sitting at their desk all day asking questions, answering questions from people. What if you go to someone else? Maybe you go to someone in a different department. Maybe there's an insight that you could use from that department. And that way you don't have to seem like you don't know something. You could say, we're working on this problem. We'd like to know how it intersects with your department. It may be that you'll bring something back that's new and fresh and actually better for the organization. But if all you're doing is saying, what do I do next? Okay, should I turn the corner or should I go back and sit at my desk? If you're asking those questions, you're probably asking the wrong questions. But if you're asking these other questions, you can go anywhere in the world and do what you do and do something you love.
Absolutely. So understand the expectations. Take notes, know, ask important questions, right? Not just, run of the mill, step by step, I got to hold your hand the whole time questions. If you're doing that, ladies and gentlemen, that might be a sign, because we're talking about communication, that maybe the performance appraisal is not going to be what you expect it to be, because trust and believe the boss remembers that you came back 40 times to ask about that same thing. They have not forgotten about that, because they had to neglect something else to answer your same question for the 40th time.
Yeah, and I'm
Right.
the queen of signs. I think there's a sign for everything. I love a stop sign and I love a green light, but I'm telling you now, there's a sign for everything. If your boss is rolling their eyes or dismissive when you come with your questions, that's a sign either that they didn't hire you and they're not excited about you, or that you have come to them too many times with tired questions. If you're somebody who rarely comes and you have a really good question, then people are going to give you attention because they know that you're only asking because you genuinely need to know. But there's sometimes, if it's just a basic question, you can get it from 9 other places. You could probably ask the boss's assistant and get half of them kind of questions. So don't waste people's time, and do it in a way where people feel as though they're part of a collaboration and not that you're just phoning it in. And especially now that we live in this Zoomosphere where everything is done the way we're doing this. I mean, sometimes, it's really hard to show your engagement any other way than asking questions that are intriguing, or asking questions that are, show thought about what the goals are. So try to keep that in mind, because it can be your magic charm early in your career, and let people know that you are focused on success.
And Kim, you talked about signs. Another sign is if your boss is showing up to your projects. They're not showing up to anybody else's project, but they have to show up to yours. That's a sign that maybe there's a concern that you can't handle this, right? Maybe there's a concern. Maybe somebody else in the organization has brought something up. I don't know. But if that's happening and you don't schedule a meeting with your boss to say, "Hey, I noticed you showing up to my project, to the project site or wherever on my Zoom calls and my meetings, like, is there anything that any question I can answer for you?" If you are not paying attention to that and you are not responding, that is a serious oversight.
And but the corollary to that is, now, if you're a star and you're killing these meetings and you know that they're going well and you're ready, welcome your boss coming. I am so glad you had time. I was so excited about the meeting today. We got X, Y, and Z done, and that's ahead of schedule. I mean, if you're a star and you know that this is where you shine, then shine. And especially when you see that you're on the main stage with the lights on you, make sure you shine. Make sure you're prepared. Once you see your boss once, that should be the sign that you should always be well prepared, because either someone has said something, but that something might be good. Don't be paranoid. The something might be you're handling, you know when the meeting is going bad. So now if you got all these bad meetings and people are showing up, that means something bad is happening. That's a sign. But if you're a star and you're getting it done and people are coming and exciting things are happening at the meeting, then people are coming to see for themselves whether what's being said is true. So it can
But
go either way.
but I can tell you one thing, I have never had a boss show up to my meetings that were doing great, or any meeting for that matter.
Really?
Have you? You have been a
Yeah.
very busy general counsel, and if somebody is a rock star, is out there rocking it, are you just showing up to their meetings unannounced?
So, especially if your boss can be paranoid and insecure too. They may want to just be like, okay, wait a minute, what is she doing over there that I need to be watching? I mean, yeah,
Well, then that's the sign you gotta go. Well, that's on the other episode. That's a
I mean,
sign you
it
right.
may be a sign. It may be a sign, but you know what? It's always good to double down on what you do well, and to know it, and to own it. And so, yeah, I've had people come because people don't believe that you have a good story. That's the
Mhm.
things. People don't believe good news, just like they don't want to believe bad news. When you got it going on, people want to see for themselves. They don't want you Monday morning quarterbacking whether she was good or whether she was bad. They want to see for themselves. So either way, the advice is the same. You should show up and you should show out. You should be able to show that you are good at this, you love this, and you're able to get people to come along. I did this meeting the other day, and afterward, people kept saying, you just managed the meeting so well. I just love it when people say that. Well, if I'm leader of the meeting, right, I'm the person who is to shepherd the meeting from point A to point B. By definition, I have to know how to do that. But all you get at the end is, and I don't know how you did it. These are very difficult people. Yes, I am especially good at shepherding a meeting with very difficult people. And so it's difficult for people to believe even that which they're seeing. But that's your technique. And that's what people don't realize. You're always working on your technique. This is your crown, if you will, and you're always polishing up those jewels. You have to know what your jewels are, and sometimes people will be clocking that, and it's okay because
Mhm.
what's yours can't be immediately appropriated.
Mm. And I still stick with, if somebody is showing up, the boss is showing up unannounced to your meetings, have a conversation with the boss. Open up your mouth. I would say for me personally, that's always done well for me in my career, is keeping the lines of communication open. We don't always agree. Sometimes we disagree. But at least I know where you stand, you know where I stand. And that's not only in my career, that's period. Friendships, family, you know where I stand, I know where you stand. Keep the lines of communication open.
Well,
So,
that can be a sign too.
yeah, that could be a what?
That can be a sign too. Hey, that chat with the boss could be your sign. Your boss is jealous. Your boss doesn't like that you shine. It could be your boss is
Ooh.
excited that you shine and wants you to work even harder so that you won't shine as bright. I mean, these are all signs that you'll know because you have followed up so that you understand. People are not monolithic. It's never just A or B. The follow up is how you're going to be able to decide whether this is somewhere you should be, or there's something else you need to get here, or whether it's time to go home and
Mm.
start looking for your new place in the world.
Mm. Now, Kim,
Mhm.
why why wouldn't my boss want me to shine?
Oh, come on.
For me.
You mean bosses aren't people? They're Martians that are sent down from another planet, a planet of goodness? What are you saying here?
They
Bosses are
hired me.
people.
I think a lot of people don't understand that. Yes,
Mm.
sometimes somebody did hire you and you came in and you were rocking it. You were working it. And for some reason, that person, their security, their level of security in themselves is pretty low, and they feel threatened by that all of a sudden. So it is not impossible for somebody to hire you, but then turn around and say, actually, you shine a little too bright.
It's possible. I mean, or let me tell you this, or something could have happened in their world. Maybe their boss changed. People always see everything from just their view, but the boss has problems, the boss has challenges, the boss reports to other people. Those people might change, and that might change. A person who was cool like that could turn into somebody who's crazy like that. So, it's not always as simple as they're out to get me. Some of it is they crazy too, and I just have to decide, can I mix me with their crazy? And so don't get caught up. Don't get it, because it the work don't know where it came from. You have to know where it comes from.
And keep the lines of communicate. I'm a strong believer in communication. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Okay, so Kim, what should our attitude be when it comes to performance evaluations and getting feedback? What should our attitude be?
Our attitude should be, again, the purpose of the evaluation is so that we can sort of benchmark where you are, and also so that you can grow. Quite frankly, the only reason to stay in a position is because there's a place to grow too. So your job in that instance is to focus on how I can grow, what I need to grow, what opportunities there are for me to grow. I always tell people, you don't judge a job just by the money. You judge it by the training. And if you have a job and nobody wants to put any money in training you, you already know what your future looks like there, because they don't expect you to do anything but what you're doing. So you also have to be proactive. You have to be the one saying, you know what? I think I need this training. I used to tell people that when we would get to performance evaluations and, you get your, that's when you get like your raise and your, I would ask for other things. Like if I thought I couldn't get more money, I would ask for something else. This is how I knew I would be doing negotiation, because I would be like, well, you can't give me this, you say, and you can't give me that, but can you give me this? And some stuff you can give. The company can give it. So you ask for it. So appraisal is an opportunity for you to learn more about what the company's commitment is to you, and to learn more about what you can do to be the best at what you do. So I would never poo-poo, trying to figure out how to be better, even if you know that some of the things you're being told aren't reasonable. Right. There are times when you are being told to be better, and the thing that you're supposed to do that's better doesn't even make any sense. You're like, well, if I wasn't doing that, we wouldn't even be talking about half of these things. So, don't get caught up in that. No, you have to have a clear assessment of who you are and where you are. But you have to be open to hear what people have to say. They may have a point that could turn your whole life around, help you find your dream job. But if you can't listen, then you won't hear it.
I absolutely agree. And I want to just go back a little bit, because I agree with that, but I left out a sign, and this is really important. So I got to take us back, Kim. If you've been written up or counseled during
Mhm.
your performance year, you had a serious talk where some notes were taken, right? And your performance was discussed, you need to keep that in mind. That that didn't just float away into the universe somewhere. It's there. So that we talked about the boss showing up to meetings, we talked about that kind of thing. We talked about you asking a million questions and not taking notes, not retaining the information. Now, what about now, Kim? I'm sure you see this. I've seen this a lot in my career, where the person's personnel file has all these write ups in it. And, and they say, well, I didn't know there was a problem. Nobody said anything to me before my appraisal. And I'm going, but wait a minute, they did. There's a memo right here on this date. There's an email right here, right?
Well, are you saying the memo, they didn't know the memo was there? Is that what we're saying?
The memo might say on July 13th, 2019, I spoke to so and so, and we talked about this. It's a memorialization of the conversation to the file.
Yeah, if you're not checking, if people are saying things about you and you don't care enough to check out what's in there, then you're going to be surprised. But if you're having a serious conversation with your boss and they are being critical of you, or they have sent an email that is critical of you, you need to be responding to that immediately, because it may be a misunderstanding about what happened. And rather than have it be a misunderstanding that turns into the snowball of, we're going to put you on some sort of performance plan, then you want to get on that immediately, because it'll help you to decide, is this where I'm supposed to be, or maybe I'm not supposed to be here. I can, the thing about today is, you can in some ways make jobs go away. I'm not saying you can make them go away entirely, but if it's an unpleasant experience on both sides, it may just be that it's a bad fit. We talk about that a lot. It just doesn't fit, like a dress that's too big or too small.
Or just ugly altogether.
Or just
Let me just
ugly.
get
We
this.
don't like
I
ugly.
don't wear this dress.
Ugly.
Where? What? Who? Why?
Right. We don't
Make me wear this.
we don't
But
do
what
ugly.
I really want people, because I've come across professionals, ladies and gentlemen, where you've gotten the email or you've gotten the write up, and you need to take it seriously. That doesn't just go away. And when I say take it seriously, I'm not saying you should now go combat the boss. You want to call the boss out on the carpet and ask why they're sending you that email. You want to go toe for toe, tit for tat with the boss over email. That is not a good look. It's not a good look.
Never.
But what I'm saying is that if you've had those conversations and if those notes have been made, it shouldn't be a surprise if it comes up on your performance appraisal.
That's
So
right.
talk about it. If there is a misunderstanding, try to get it cleared up. But if it's there and it's there, you got to live with it. Don't be surprised when it comes time for your performance review. In fact, you could actually use the time between when you have that conversation and the review to improve, so that when you walk into your appraisal, you're saying, yeah, I know we had the conversation on July 13th, 2019. But since then, right? And this is November. Since then, I've done these things to address your concerns.
That's right. I took your counsel to heart, and I took these steps, and here's the memo where I did this, and here's the meeting where I did that, and here's the session I had with my colleagues where we worked on this principle and moved it forward for the company. You want to be able to demonstrate that whatever that was, it was an aberration. Whatever that was, you were going in the wrong direction, but thanks to you, boss, I have turned my direction around and I'm going the right way. You may still quit, but this is a skill you'll need to have wherever you go. And it is such a wonderful thing to have, because if you can do that, there's pretty much not anything left that you need to learn how to do.
Absolutely. I want to say, okay, now we're back to how should we approach the appraisal? We just said, okay, if you had that conversation during the year, show up prepared, show up with your notes, show up with your accomplishments, things that you've worked on, things that you've done. Be able to advocate for yourself. If you can't advocate for you, nobody will. Be
That's
willing
right.
to show up with your stuff, your good stuff.
You're not doing it right if you can't advocate for yourself. And if anything, you are your only person that you really have to advocate for in the workplace. Now, you may have a job where you advocate for groups and teams, but if you're not able to do it for yourself, you are not going to be able to do it for them. So practice with yourself so that you're ready for the group.
I would also say, be, Kim talked about this earlier, but put away your defenses. Be somebody that somebody can actually give some feedback to.
That's right.
Do you walk in with all your ganglia on the outside and somebody touch you and you like, you know, I'm
It
offended,
can't be touched.
it's because I'm a member of all these classes that you saying this.
That's right.
Or are you walking in really with an open mind?
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean people can just write anything and say anything and they don't have anything to back it up. There are also those times when someone may be trying to give you some feedback and you say, okay, well, can you give me an example? And they can't give you an example. That's problematic in my book, Kim.
It is. It's a problem.
That seems arbitrary to me.
It
But if
is.
someone can give you some actual concrete examples,
Absolutely.
be open.
And
That,
again, I'm sorry, Felicia, I was so excited by what you said because it makes so sense. But see, this is the thing. We hear feedback and we feel like we have to give just like an instant response instead of saying, and this is a phrase that I use a lot, I'm going to think about that. I'll get back to you. How about that? I'm going to think about that. Now, it may be that when you think about it, you're like, that was really foul. That is so not true. I don't like that advice and I'm smart. But do that with your friends at home. Okay. That's what you do at home. You go through it and you do whatever. Don't try in that moment, because you might be feeling some kind of way about it. Even if it's a fair criticism, take the beat. Wow, I really want to take some time and think about that. Can we make a time to talk about that tomorrow, next week, whenever you feel like you'll be ready? Because by then you'll have vetted it to your people and you'll be able to say, I remember once, this is so funny. I had this evaluation. This is a true story. And my boss said, and yeah, you did this and you moved these cases and you did this and you made all this money and blah, 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 blah. And then he goes, but your desk is not neat. That's how he ended my evaluation. But your desk. Now, mind you, I am sitting across from his desk. Okay. Remember how I said you're supposed to emulate the people you want to be? His desk was all kind of chaos. In fact, if you were to look at my desk after you looked at his, you say, she's a lot like you. Her desk can only be deciphered by her. I called my best friend. I mean, we talking about my ace, boom, coon, college. We were roommates, friend. And I go through this with her. She worked for IBM. And he said that my desk was not neat. What kind of desk review is that? She goes, is your desk neat? I said, no. And she said, well, clean your desk. That's what she said to me. She said, well, clean off your desk. I said, but that's so petty. I'm working, 80 hours a week and we're talking about money. She said, clean off. This true story. We talk about all the time. Clean off your desk. And she said, and I got a tip for you. The bottom right deep drawer is deep. At the end of the day, take everything on the top of your desk and put it in that drawer. Close the drawer and go home. And I was like, really? Is that true story? I clean off my desk. I spend all day. I figure out what to do. I know how to throw everything on my desk at the end. People in the office were in tears. Why? They thought I was going to quit. All of the people in the office were coming by going, you cleaned off your desk. I'm quitting. I mean, I know you got a lot of work to do, so your desk isn't empty because you don't have any work. I mean, it was so bad that I think somebody went back to him and said, she cleaned off her desk. She could be packing up to go. What are you thinking? Leave her alone. I never discussed my desk again, ever.
Well, that's, I think that goes to the be willing to hear what people have to say. And sometimes you don't agree, but it's not going to harm you to make an adjustment
That's right.
so that you can meet whatever the expectation is. See, there's a lot of us who want to do it our way.
Yeah.
Boss says, do it this way.
Yeah.
And this is the goalpost. I'm showing you the goalpost. It's right here.
Right here. Right here.
And we turn around and say, we don't want to do it that way.
Right.
We want to do it this way.
Right.
Boss says, can you put together an Excel spreadsheet? And you say, I'm going to do a PowerPoint.
Right.
Boss said the goalpost was the Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I understand you did an outstanding PowerPoint that can convert into a website and video and all of that. Not what the boss asked for.
Not what they asked for.
Spreadsheet. So I think that's really key, is listening to what boss is saying the need is and working toward that. Listen to the feedback. And again, not if I understand people are petty and people can be arbitrary. Yes, indeedy. Trust me, I've dealt with it myself. I've seen it, right? But be willing to say, I'd like to think about that and come back. Now, I can tell you a time when I got a great performance appraisal. Great. It wasn't anything. It was actually next to the highest, but it wasn't the highest. And I felt like it didn't take into consideration some of the other things I had done in the performance year. I went back to my director and I said, I actually think this rating is low for what I've done because I've done these things. And that director said to me, okay, put together a list of all the other things that you think we didn't consider. I did. I went away. I did all of that. I brought it back to her. And she said, you know what? You raise a good point. Let me pull the appraisal. Let me pull the review committee back together to consider all of this additional information. And she did. And I got the higher mark. But even if she hadn't given me the higher mark, she listened to me. She asked me to give her more information, and I had more information to give. I didn't go in swinging and in my feelings about how you retaliating against me and you discriminating against me no. It was, I actually think this could be higher, and let me show you why. If anything, that showed her what a great attorney I could be. Because what do, Kim? Part of our job is persuasion through
Absolutely.
what? Argument and what? Evidence. So she's looking at me like, oh, okay, I might have a rock star lawyer on my hands because she's bringing the evidence and she's in here doing her own oral argument on how I should reconsider this. So it got me, so show up with an open mind, a willingness to receive the feedback, and have your ducks in a row, have your stuff ready.
Yeah, if you can't make the case for why you deserve something else, then you should be practicing it whether you get it or not. I mean, I think the thing is, there's a whole rubric on how people decide what they're going to rate you, and sometimes even though it's a good rating or a great rating, it's not the rating you still deserve, and you can go back and ask for it. I think the other thing to keep in mind is, like you said, no matter how it comes out, if there's that great communication and you really could demonstrate why you deserved it, whether you get it or not in that situation, it's one of those things where it's hard to complain that I was great, but I wasn't the greatest. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's gonna be hard. It's like you can make that argument, but you can't sue because of it. I can tell you that right now, because people are gonna be like, so wait, no, no, wait. You're upset because they didn't give you the greatest, the top 1%. But you in the top 10. You just not in the top one. I mean, people are not gonna have any time for you, and you should not make yourself crazy over being perfect, because work is imperfect almost by definition. So you have to be fluid enough to recognize that yes, you should give it your all and make sure people's characterization of you is accurate. And the fact that Felice is somebody who's already got her dossier back at her desk. She didn't have to go make no list, y'all. She already knew what her 5 things were that she did, and she could put them together quickly and get them out. And we have to know who we are, and we have to play the position that we are. And if you're that person like her, go for it. But if you are somebody who don't even know what it was you could have also done, then just go in gracefully and say, what's the difference between where I am and where I need to be? And then just go back and start on your list like beliefs.
And it taught me a lot when we talked about the communication piece. You said you might learn something in those conversations about your boss. That taught me a lot about my boss. It taught me that she was actually willing to reconsider her own decision.
That's right. She's a real special boss. Not every boss does that.
I loved her. A lot of people in the office didn't like her. I don't know why. Don't care. None of my business. I loved her. I love her to this day. We still talk to this day. And because she showed me that what I thought mattered enough for her to think about it again.
I think everybody, let me tell you something. If you have not had any work experience where you admired your boss because of their character, their integrity, their judgment, and you haven't had a chance to be close to that, you're probably in the wrong place. And you shouldn't be, micromanaging yourself and feeling bad about that. You are not in the aura of the right kinds of people, because you're absolutely right. The more you have an experience like the one that Felice had, the more you understand the things that can be done at work, the growth you can have at work, the leadership you can emulate at work. But you can't do that if you're emulating people who themselves are hacks. That's not
Mm,
going to help you to be better. I'm not trying to I'll tell you
mm,
something. If I work for you, and I'm hoping never to do that again, if I work for you and I discover that you're a hack and I can't learn anything from you, I'm out. I'm out. I have
mm,
quit a job over that. I was like, that person's
mm,
gonna be my boss. I'm not feeling none of that. Oh, I don't care what they thought when they hired him. It wasn't him. I'm not working here because I
mm.
already know that this is going to have an impact on my excellence. My excellence is going to
Woo!
be interfered with, right? Because when you're dealing with people who aren't even equally yoked with you, and they're, asking you to do all this, whatever stuff, and you're sitting there going, oh my God, this person doesn't even have vision. How can they lead me? Where there is no vision, the people really do perish. So I quit. I quit. He hadn't done nothing to me. I mean, yeah, I had a couple conversations where I thought, oh no, I cannot follow him. But after that, I quit. I mean, nobody did anything to me. He didn't give me no bad praise. In fact, when I quit, I thought he was gonna dance to the hilltops. Although he did tell me my job basically was better than what I had, which was just more reason why I shouldn't have been working for him. But I'm telling you, you have to know you have to know yourself, and you have to be able to make those kinds of assessments. And I knew that no matter what I did, this wasn't going to be a good fit for me as well as.
Mm,
And in the end, he hired somebody he already knew. He wasn't hiring for a new person. He wasn't trying to get to know me to see,
mm.
whether we could work together. And the times that we did interact, it just left me thinking, oh my God, I've got to quit.
I got to go.
I got
You
to
know
go.
what, Kim? I have had some wonderful,
Yeah,
amazing
me too.
bosses who cared, who
Yeah.
truly cared about me and my development.
Mhm.
And of course, they had great expectations too. The work
Oh,
needs
yeah.
to be getting done
Oh,
and it
yeah.
should be excellent quality,
Absolutely.
quantity,
Absolutely.
all of that timeliness. But they really want to see. But I have had some dog and pony shows too.
But Imma
I
tell you the hallmark of what you're saying. The hallmark is a boss who listens to you,
mm,
who thinks, right, that they hired someone smart enough, brilliant enough, talented enough, put all the adjectives in there, that they're worthy of being listened to. Every time, I'm thinking back through all of my great bosses, all of them, whether I was right or wrong, whether we did what I said or not, all of them listen. I'm telling you, the great confidence comes from the fact that they listen to you.
they listened. They listened. But I've had dumber than a sack of rocks kind of people. I've had people who were so self-centered and just worried about only themselves looking good. And I've had folks who told me to my face, I don't care. Don't care. Don't care about you. Don't care about none of these people. Right. So, but when those things happen, you got to know maybe this is not the greatest fit for me.
For
With
you,
that, Kim, I think we have explored this topic thoroughly. What do you think?
I think we got it done. I think we talked about things that people don't just sit around and talk about, but that are important to how they're going to move forward with their careers. And I think that this is a topic that is rarely discussed, Felice, and you're just researching it, and you're so right. We need to talk about what the research shows, but what the reality is. So I'm very excited that we had this opportunity to gauge on this today.
Absolutely. That Gallup poll also showed that only, I think they said 14.5% of employees believe that performance appraisals help them to improve or inspired them to improve. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we sign off, I want you to think about how you're going to make that evaluation process work for you, how you're going to work it so that it works for you.
That's right. That's why they call it work, but you can always work it.
Once again, thank you for tuning in to Work It, the podcast where we get honest about your situation at work. I am Felice.
I'm Kim.